Hello, everyone, and good evening. I'm happy to welcome you all to the introductory webinar on Avtar's latest program, Avtar Certified Diversity Auditor. I'm Lalita, and I will be your MC for today. As we start, here are a few hygiene checks for a seamless virtual experience. Please close all other applications on your computer and log out from your organization's VPN to conserve the internet bandwidth. Once again, extremely thrilled and delighted to welcome you all to the introductory webinar on Avtar Certified Diversity Auditor. As more and more organizations seek blueprints for diversity, equity, and inclusion in their workplaces, it is important to create standards that will provide clarity and a pathway for achieving those results. As a step towards this, Avtar has launched a new program, Avtar Certified Diversity Auditor, abbreviated as ACDA. ACDA is an individual certification program designed based on the recent guidelines from International Standards Organization called ISO 30415. This provides guidance on DEI for organizations, including their governance bodies, leaders, workforce and recognized representatives, and other stakeholders. ACDA will help organization champions of DEI and DEI practitioners to adopt the most appropriate approach to strategizing and implementing DEI in organizations based on their organization's context, helping them create DEI frameworks and protocols aligned with their respective business goals. It is a certification program that will be delivered through virtual sessions by a team of senior facilitators from Avtar, led by Ms. Bhavani Balasubramanian, Chief Strategist, Diversity Evaluation, Avtar. Ms. Bhavani, a chartered accountant and company secretary by profession, was formerly an audit and assurance partner and head of diversity and inclusion at Deloitte with 4 decades of experience. As an inclusion leader at Deloitte, she had led various DEI initiatives for around 5,000 professionals over the years. She's an independent director in boards of public companies. She's chairperson of Women's Business Council of Madras Chamber of Commerce, has been chairperson of company law committees of ASSOCHAM and Madras Chamber of Commerce. She has been a member of Audit and Assurance Board at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for 8 years. She has authored 10 publications on audit, curated and launched the audit e-learning projects, and has trained chartered accountants in audit for over 3 decades. She is recognized for her expertise on risk-based audits and was invited by the Government of India and Government of Bhutan to train the government auditors in this methodology. She is currently an academic council member of Shiv Nadar University. She is a leadership coach. She is a leadership and diversity coach. Over to you, Bhavani ma'am, for sharing insights on what the program entails.
Thank you for your kind words of introduction, Lalita. Good evening, friends. It's wonderful to be with you all this evening to talk about a path-breaking program, Avtar Certified Diversity Auditor, the first of its kind in this part of the world. And it's going to be an exciting journey for us to go through should you wish to join us for this wonderful experience. I'm going to take you through a set of slides to explain the contents of this program. Is my voice clear and is the screen seen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have a very diverse environment and a very inclusive culture. And those characteristics got us through tough times. Diversity generated a better strategy, better risk management, better debates, and better outcomes, said Alan Joyce. Inspired by her quote, we decided to launch the Avtar Certified Diversity Auditor, a program aimed at making sure that DEI is embedded, enriched, and develops into a powerful tool for corporates to prosper and become the benchmarks of ESG in today's environment. When we talk about this program, we believe as pioneers in DEI assessments and audits in India, we have a rich experience of having created a framework as old as in 2009, which covered leadership assessment, orientation, and approach for diversity, people management and perception of a framework, and created awareness in organizations on what is diversity and inclusion. We've conducted a range of DEI audits which address the various strands of gender, PWD, LGBTQ, and generation. As far as gender, we need not have to talk about our achievements in this space in terms of what we have propagated, right from the BCWI until the kind of benchmarks which we have established. In PWD, we conduct audits to ensure that the infrastructure and the awareness is there in organizations. Don't forget that this is becoming mandatory for private organizations from next year. The LGBTQ, our audits aim at creating awareness and acceptance of this segment, and for generational diversity, we make sure that intergenerational collaboration and conflict engagement is taken care as a result of our findings from these audits. As you're all well aware, we host the BCWI and what we call the MICI, the Most Inclusive Companies Index, as a large industry benchmarking exercise, which is aimed at creating diversity, inclusion, and equity, awareness and enrichment in companies. When you look at what is ACDA, as Lalita said, it is an individual certification program, which is based on the standard by ISO, which is called the ISO 30415, the Human Resource Management Standard on Diversity and Inclusion, as it is captioned. This program enables TI champions like you and practitioners to adopt the most suitable approach in strategizing and implementing DEI in your organizations. You learn through the program the skills of DEI frameworks, the Avtar framework, which has been its expertise for over 2 decades, and the framework as suggested by the ISO, so that you can curate the best approach for your organization. By creating such frameworks and aligning the protocols with your business goals and strategy, you will be able to ensure that the framework is comprehensively built for your organization, along with processes, practices, measures, and matrices. You would be able to help your management do a self-assessment of your framework and later on conduct audits of your organization's practices. So what we are trying to mold in this program for people like you is to make sure that you are able to create, nurture, develop, and ensure the utmost mature positioning of DEI in your organization. Talking about ISO 30415, so far DEI implementation and DEI practices in organizations were experimental, judgmental, and incidental in many cases. The GDEIB came out with a framework a few years ago, wherein they decided to bring out 5 levels of benchmarkings for organizations. in their level of DEI, implementation, and the journey which organizations have embarked on. But when you look at the happenings, HR became a major risk in 2022. Lawsuits and harassment cases, especially in the US, were on the rise. Companies wanted a robust strategy. A mandatory need was there to have an authoritative framework. And therefore, this standard, which was discussed and developed for over 3 years, finally got its consensus in May 2021. And it belongs to the HR family of the 30,400 standards, but is much more detailed and focused on DEI when compared to the HR standard of ISO 30414. This is a governance standard and it is not an accreditation standard. You need to make a note that it is very much recommendatory and aims at making sure that organizations have proper governance in implementing DEI. In terms of the standard, it's got 23 segments. D&I principles, a strategic framework, organizational sustainability goals and details, inclusive culture, policies, products, services, supply chain requirements, and stakeholders' needs. The standard tries to ensure that practices and policies are benchmarked and measured by a process of plan, do, check, and review methodology. When we look at the benefits of this standard, all of us today are really under the overdrive of compliance and rigor. So implementation of this standard in your organization would give an authoritative endorsement of the positioning of your organization against the ESG goals. And for those companies who have the business responsibility and social reporting, an endorsement of compliance of this standard would only add to the accreditation of your entity. When we talk about competitive edge as a supplier, today, when there is a plate of contents on your company's table, whether these have been cultivated under eco-friendly environments, whether proper and fair labor has been employed, and whether this item has been transported through a carbon neutral mechanism becomes important. So therefore, it is also important as a supplier that you are able to hold out to your global contractors that your environment is fair and equitable and fair labor has been employed. So also all kinds of diverse suppliers have been, sub-suppliers have been used for the manufacture of the products which you supply. If you look at garments which are exported, this is one of the prerequisites that it has been produced under the environment where human rights are protected. That's just an example. When we talk about leadership commitment to DEI, leaders have to be accountable and responsible and ensure implementation of DEI. DEI is not something nice to have. It is a leadership commitment top down. De-risking of business through a proper strategy with innovation, with diversity of thought and diversity, equity, and inclusion alignment throughout the organization so that people perform at their best potential is one of the aims of trying to map your corporate entities' practices against the standard. The beauty of the standard is it is applicable to companies of all types and sizes, public and private sector, any scale of a company, and whatever be the level of maturity, this standard can be applied for use. It can be scaled up and scaled down very easily. It is important for us to appreciate that It is not only the processes, but the standard aims at a mindset change, a feedback mechanism, and a continuous process of improvement. It is a well consulted and nicely constructed standard for us to understand and implement. Talking more about the contents of the standard, it's based on principle, planet, people, and prosperity, the four principles, where human capital is the core of business. Delivering on values, addressing skill gaps, unleashing the potential, identifying high performers, inspiring talent, and building a resilient culture are some of the objectives of a proper DEI framework, isn't it? Creating confidence in capital markets and investors is one of the outcomes of such a wonderful framework. When we talk about the fundamental DEI principles and the prerequisites, it is important for the organization to demonstrate ongoing commitment to DEI and approach and value diversity and foster the development of an inclusive workplace. The standard looks at accountabilities and responsibilities of leaders and what would be the benchmark to measure their performance. When we come to the DEI framework, the standard clearly tells us about the vision, mission, strategy, principles, values, and beliefs of the DEI framework. The inclusive culture where every person is respected and everybody has a voice has been one of the bedrocks of this standard. When you look at the human resource management life cycle that has been dealt with in great detail under the various subheadings, for instance, with workforce planning, they talk about assessment of supply and demand of workforce, mapping of skills and abilities, and ensuring that a diverse workforce is recruited. When it comes to remuneration, standard encourages us to address pay anomalies, the disparities in remuneration, and look at whether somebody has not been fairly remunerated. On recruitment, it encourages you to look for the potential of bias, look at the market representation, and benchmark your recruitment against other peers in your environment. When it comes to onboarding, the standard reiterates that we should help people succeed and encourage inclusive behaviors. On learning and development, there is a lot of focus on D&I and inclusive behavior and tackling biases. Performance management, a fair assessment of performance and recognizing the potential of people and any kind of handicaps they've had on a temporary basis, which has to be evened out. In terms of succession planning, whether you have looked at a diverse pool of potential successors is what the standard reminds us. On workforce mobility, whether relocation has been looked at with a proactive D&I lens, and whether practices have been employed to ensure that mobility of workforce is a smooth transition. When it comes to cessation of employment, whether there has been fairness and whether all aspects have been considered is what the standard asks us to look at. In terms of products and services, design, development, and delivery, it is reiterated whether secure work conditions have been there for people, whether there's been a fair treatment, whether diverse customers have been catered to, whether clients and users are happy with the kind of products we deliver. In terms of procurement and supply chain relationships, supplier diversity and the supply chain commitment to DEI is of utmost importance. When it comes to external stakeholder relationships, the standard suggests that we have proactive engagement with our stakeholders and regulators and build reputation for what we call as social responsibility of our organizations. This standard aims at helping organizations achieve the DEI objectives, evaluate the impact on people and on communities and the society to meet the sustainable goals. Because this standard is based on catering to the following sustainable development goals. SGD 5, gender equality. SGD 8, decent work and economic growth. SGD 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure requirements. SGD 10, reduced inequality and principles of human rights at work. In ISO 30415, to tell you in short, valuing people is not confined to a calculation of quantitative monetary value. Value is defined as an inherent, unique merit and the worth of people connected to actual or potential consistence that people at all levels can contribute for. When we look at what our learning aims at, it would give you a broad understanding of DEI strategy and frameworks. As I mentioned, we are going to take you through 6 modules of the Avtar's DEI strategy and the frameworks which we have developed over the years. And then we'd also familiarize you with the guidelines of ISO 30415. We would help you plan for DEI implementation, conforming to the ISO standards, familiarize you with the matrices, measures, actions to monitor the progress in your organizations, and basing it, if you so choose, on the ISO standards at some point in time. It would help you develop awareness and capabilities to identify opportunities for improvement in all aspects relating to DEI in your organization. And finally, you'd be able to conduct an audit of the DEI implementation in your organization and make an assessment in terms of its adherence to the ISO standards. The benefits of this would be to have a deep understanding of DEI. You will be able to make sure that you can leverage DEI to its fullest potential because you would have the standard, which is an encyclopedia, and all the tools to implement this, including various case situations which we will be discussing. You'll be able to create a customized DEI framework. As I mentioned, the ISO is scalable. Avtar's frameworks have been time tested. And therefore, the ACDA participants would be able to choose the most appropriate approach to strategize and implement DEI. You'd be a very successful change agent for your organization. You acquire all the tools for transformation. It would empower you to implement the audit of the practice which has been made, and you'd be able to measure the progress from time to time. When it comes to reporting globally on your DEI scorecards, you would be able to authoritatively attach a self-assessment and your findings to the scorecard to make your reporting authentic. Whenever your global teams would like to visit you on a DEI audit, here you are with the completed management self-assessment to give to them as an authentic record so that they would be able to make an assessment of where you stand. And you, as an India practice, would be very different from the other countries in terms of equipping your global teams with this authentic document. Who can apply? CHROs, diversity officers, DEI champions, leads, and senior HR leaders, of course, because you're the people who breathe diversity and HRM in your day-to-day roles. We would be having this as a virtual workshop with 40 hours duration, with 10 sessions, including assessments, preparatory work, case studies, and follow-up. The case study method will be extensively used in the training course, and therefore we recommend that people should be present for all the 10 modules. The assessments would be done online for you to be able to get the certification. There'll be reading materials post the workshop, and every participant would receive a certification upon attending the training session. We always believe in interactive methodologies, especially in the virtual environment, with PowerPoint presentations, videos, poll questions, questions to reflect, group discussions, and then case studies and scenarios. And real life corporate scenarios as well would be discussed. The session outline would be 10 modules, which are listed there on the screen. And as you would see, it is not just an auditor course, but has got so much of journey of making people go through diversity, equity, and inclusion from its roots until a stage where you're able to have a plan and help migrate your organization to a different level. So that's what we have from our end at this point. And it's time for questions. So let me stop sharing.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bhavani ma'am, for giving us a detailed understanding and clear benefits of the program. I'm sure many of the attendees of this session have many questions in their mind regarding the program. So now we have a question and answer session with Ms. Bhavani Balasubramanian, led by Mr. Karthik Ekambar, Executive Vice President and Director, DEI Solutions, Avtar Group. Mr. Karthik is a diversity and inclusion specialist who has completed several seminal projects successfully for various organizations. With over 19 years of experience in business analysis, talent strategy, and workforce diversity consulting, Mr. Karthik has devised flexible working policies and created diversity-ready workplaces for several Fortune 500 organizations. Over to you, Karthik sir and Bhavani ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Lalita. Thank you for this kind introduction. Hello, Bhavani ma'am. I think it's been a nice sort of a presentation, and we got a gist of what we're really looking at from the Avtar Certified Diversity Auditor Program. And before I think we want to get into the questions that are there, I had a couple of questions that I want to ask you. And the first one is very generic, right? And we are talking about ISO, and we all know about the process that it's really that we're really looking at from an ISO perspective, and your experience and expertise as an audit professional, and having audited a number of organizations and various, right from the business, and also a professional DNA expert, working for a very large multinational organizations. Bhavani ma'am, what do you think is the importance of the entire ISO with respect to actually putting a process in place? We all understand with respect to DEI, we put certain objectives, the goals, and we also look at the end results. But we all understand the process is the key to actually getting the results. So why do you think this entire aspect of the ISO would really help organizations really fulfill and ensure they're able to see the results? If you could, from your experience, talk about the importance of adhering to processes and ensure that we are actually following it. Thereby, we're also able to assessing it, ensure that it is followed. If you could share some thoughts on it, it'll be really great, Bhavani.
As I briefly mentioned, Karthik, DEI has been evolving. When I started it, I was the diversity leader for the first 2 years. Then I was the inclusion leader. And then the whole concept of DEI came in. And today we are at DEIB. And I do not know by the time we close this course, what else in terms of another alphabet would get added on to this. Since it was evolving, so were the frameworks across different countries based on their business needs. So the GDIEB came up with a framework to say, let us suggest a kind of benchmarking and a DEI journey for organizations. And that was not enough. This being one side, the business need and the kind of issues which came up in terms of the working environment, in terms of the supplier requirements, where global organizations had outsourced supplies to various countries, there was this immediate burning need to make sure that DEI across the world is implemented properly so that the global manufacturers rest in peace to say that their products are compliant with all the requirements which are there in the Sustainable Development Goals as well as any other regulatory frameworks. And there was a need to have a common standard. And that's why this ISO has been created and launched in May 21. So that kind of does away with the GDIB and all those requirements. And the standard is a kind of a guideline standard and helps in terms of explaining the subject for the 23 segments. It gives the actions, it gives the measures, and it gives the matrices. What more does a DI professional want in terms of an encyclopedia to implement the entire DEI journey in their organization? So I think this is some of the, best things one can easily have. And it's a very comprehensive standard and very, very much user friendly and scalable according to the size.
Oh, thank you, Bhavani ma'am. I think that really gives us the importance of this, right, in terms of as comprehensive as it can get, and it really gives us the path and really provides us the guidelines and the steps to really put things in motion and ensure that we are able to see the kind of results that we really want to see from our efforts. You spoke about the matrices. At the end of the day, those are really counts. So thank you. I think there are some questions that are there, and as we go along, I thought I'll just pick up some of the questions. So there's a question on what will be the schedule for the 10 sessions? Will it be over weekend? Would you like to answer that, please?
Yes. As a learning leader in Deloitte for 3 decades, I made sure that there was no training program over the weekend, much against the resistance of many of my colleagues, because I respect the participants' time. What we have tried to do is hold it over the weekdays, but not on a Monday or a Friday, because those two are busy days. And we have tried to schedule it from 3:30 to 6:30 so that it doesn't interfere with your business meetings. So this is how we have tried to schedule it. Let's see how it works.
Okay, thank you. I think there's a question. Suchi has raised her hand. Suchi, would you like to ask a question?
Hi, Karthik. Hi, Bhavani. Yeah. What I'm trying, one is that I think I missed, the commitment in terms of time. I think one session would be a 1 hour, and also what's the commitment in terms of finances. The other, another important question I'm seeking to understand is, say once I have this certificate, then what? So I'm from Accenture Talent Strategy team, and we don't have this position created yet. We don't do audit as of yet. So how do you see that translating as implementation in the organization?
Let me give you the answers one by one. The time commitment is 40 hours, 10 modules of 3 hours each, and your assessment. Okay. And in terms of what this would aim at, our vision is that it would create a professional position in HR, subsect DEI, between your chief diversity officer and your business leaders. It would be an evolving position. I wish organizations give a nice christening for this so that you would be the person equipped as the DEI implementation lead and also a self-assessment officer. So the certification gives you an accreditation to say that you're trained in DEI frameworks, including the ISO framework, and you are in a position to do a management assessment as well as do an audit of the DEI systems, processes, and controls. Does it make it clear, Suchi?
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to just do a conversation in the organization to create something like that. Am I right?
Yes, first, you don't even have to do a conversation. After attending this program, if you start working on the DEI framework and putting things in place and coming out with a manual to implement whatever framework you have in your organization, they will automatically create the position for you. I believe that you should not ask for a position. The position should come to you automatically and indispensably. And that's what this course aims at.
Right. Makes sense, Bhavani. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have a question. Neha, would you like to ask your question, please?
Yeah, thank you for such an insightful session, Bhavani. My question is, what would be the periodicity of this course? So would you, run it annually, or how frequently would it be?
We are doing the first batch from 22nd July to 26th August. And then depending on our calendar, our training calendars, we would be hosting this course later on. We haven't planned the next sessions yet. But the first session starts on 26th July. You'll have 2 modules every week. And then we close it by 26th August. We try to do an assessment of how busy the corporate calendars are, and we picked on these 2 months, Neha. That's what we did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any questions that we have? If not, I have some more questions for you, Bhavani ma'am. So,
Yes, sir, we have another question in the chat window.
yeah, okay.
Sheba is asking, does this certification enable me to audit other organizations as a DEI auditor?
All right, this certificate is authorizing you to implement a DEI framework, do a management self-assessment, and do an audit of the framework you have implemented. If you say you want to audit other organizations, in what capacity are you talking about, dear? Can I understand that better?
Shiva?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for this wonderful session. It was really an eye-opener. So I just want to know whether I can be an auditor for other organizations, like whether they have implemented D&I in their organization. In
Yes,
that prospect.
that's what I'm asking you. Under what capacity?
Capacity in sense how you are.
When you say you're an auditor, under what capacity will you be an auditor? That's what I'm asking.
Okay, so especially for D&I, there is no particular person as an auditor who can assess the organization. Like comparing with other organizations, how many percentage of D&I has been achieved in an organization.
Okay.
So in that perspective view,
so you will want to be an individual to audit other organizations. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. To audit an organization, you need a practicing certificate, or you need to be with an organization which has that expertise, right?
Yes. Okay. So does this certify me as an expertise?
The certificate gives you an accreditation that you have learned these things.
Okay.
Okay. To me, unless you are part of a larger organization, which is like your internal auditors, or you're part of a DEI organization, I don't expect immediate practice opportunities, Shiva. I'm not saying you're not qualified. Don't read me wrong. You are qualified.
Yeah.
You could get easily recruited by any of these 2 types of organizations. You would be recruited by industry, because this is an additional certification which hardly anybody would possess. Okay. If you want to have a specialized field, even diversity, equity, and inclusion, there is no specific certification. So this could give you a certification of a DEI expert knowledge as well as an audit knowledge.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that you will be able to immediately set up your practice. From being a practicing auditor for 40 years, I'm telling you the practical aspects of it.
Yeah, okay.
So you would be definitely qualified to join and gain experience with a DI organization, an expert organization like Avtar, or join a set of internal auditors and keep your fingers crossed that they would get an opportunity to do a DEI audit. Today, DEI audits are the nice aspects of a board or a leadership feather in the cap for managing directors. I don't think people are yet, wanting to test to do an audit. So you will have to prove more through implementation in the initial years and encouraging your organization to do a self-assessment, which you will do based on the DEI requirements under 30415, gain that expertise, and then think about practice.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
It's
much.
only a roadmap I'm suggesting, Shiba. I'm not saying that you're not fit enough to do this.
Yeah, I completely understand.
We also have a question from Suchi. Says, is there any eligibility criteria? She has 3 years of experience. She would like to know whether she can be part of this course with 3 years of experience.
Experience in what, Suchi?
DEI.
Of course you can. Of course you can. I would say it's the right time because you would get this niche additional certification, right?
Yeah.
Which somebody else may not have. So your resume will have an added advantage. Yes, there was another question in the chat. Can I do this for multiple organizations? Was that the question, Lalita?
Yeah, there's a question on can I do multiple implementations in multiple organizations? Bhavani.
As a consultant?
I suppose so. Nimisha, would you like to come on and ask that question, clarify?
Yeah, Karthik. Bhavani, I am in as a consultant.
Yeah, are you currently a consultant?
Yeah, I am a HR recruitment consultant.
Sorry, you're too fast. Your voice is not clear.
I am a recruitment
consultant.
Yeah.
Yes. And are you already in the practice of DEI, Nimisha?
Not really.
All right. See, what would happen is you would get an understanding of the DEI, the implementation requirements, how to help set up these systems in organizations, and later on do the audits. So you get the theoretical knowledge by this course. Then it's up to you to decide what you want to do.
Thank you.
Right?
Okay, do we have any more questions?
I had a quick question. Hello, Bhavani ma'am. So my question is to do with, when you're talking about this module, does it have to only do with, evaluation of DNI practices, or would this course also take us through how to set up processes? I'm asking this question from my current organizational perspective, wherein we are trying to, build on DNI, and we are pretty much starting from scratch. And previously I've worked with organizations for about 5-6 years, wherein, the practices were already in place. We were kind of building on it. So is it just the evaluation, because that would be the next step from my organizational perspective, or would it take us through the process of, working on the strategic plans and everything around setting up the processes?
Okay. The very fact that we have not stuck to an ISO certification alone per se is to ensure that this objective of people like yours is met. We'd like to take people through the journey of right from what is DEI up to how it has to be implemented in organizations, what are the first steps, what are the next steps. In fact, module 1 to 6 concentrates only on setting up a DEI, making sure systems and processes are in place. And then we move only in module 7 to the higher standard of matrices and measurements. And the evaluation of the system starts from 8 to 10. If you want me to tell you the list of modules which you saw in that slide. The very purpose of getting you certified as an Avtar certified diversity auditor is to make sure you have all these multiple skill sets and not restrict you as an ISO auditor who would be only doing evaluation, linking it to the standard.
Got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, that's a great question, Tanushree. I think that's provided a lot of clarification to even others, Bhavani, in terms of the scope of the program, right? It's just not about the ISO itself, but about the entire understanding of DEI and how you go about actually implementing it in your own organization. And thereby then,
Yeah, sorry, go on.
And thereby actually looking at the ISO as a process, as a methodology in which you implement, and also your ability to self-assess.
See, there are two levels of organizations broadly today, as I see it. Okay, one is the multinational organizations which have got advanced systems and processes for DEI, and have scorecards and other monitoring mechanisms. For them, people who attend this course and understand the ISO would be able to do a complete self-assessment and submit to the global office to say, here I am, this is where India stands, which would give them a lot of confidence to do an offline assessment of the India practice. That is one segment. The next segment is the mid-level and the smaller organizations, and those organizations which are starting their journey or are somewhere midway but would like to refine themselves. So for those organizations, people who get trained here would be able to develop the entire roadmap for DEI. Right?
Yeah.
Ma'am, one follow-up on this pointer. Is this program very India specific, or the case studies and the modules are going to be global in nature in terms of implementation?
What we have done is we have considered the global context for organizations. We would be, in the case studies, we would be giving a flavor of some of the global policies. But when we look at some of the case examples, they would be applicable to anywhere across the globe. But what we are not consciously doing is considering those regulatory or those environmental issues of DEI in the modules which we cover. Because this is for the Indian audience at this point. For instance, we are not going to take up, that Lloyd case kind of scenario as a case study to discuss, or the Black African issues as a segment. We are not going to discuss those because we would like to cover our own Indian segments, but we would have you work on case studies which would have a reference to global policies of that particular organization. But the ISO standard, which we'll be taking you through, is a global standard. It's a generic standard. It's not India specific. It would have practices and processes which are related to the global requirements. So in that part of it, we'd be covering the global requirements in full. I think, Tanushree, that would really be beneficial because the whole standard is generic across the world. There is no Indian DEI standard at all here.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you so much. Actually, that's one thing that I've been struggling with because I've worked with, the DNI space in India, but now I'm working with the global space and, understanding culture. And like you mentioned, certain aspects are very specific to certain countries. And that's why I just wanted some clarity. Your answer definitely gives me that clarity.
Don't worry, there is a lot of culture awareness to build for our global folks about India before you even talk about DEI in India. I struggled through that here. It's a nice, interesting journey.
It is, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
Not at the moment, sir.
Okay. So if we have no more questions, I think we can call it a day. Is there anyone else?
Karthik, would we get like a module or something that we can go through in terms of the program that would be available after the call?
Yeah.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Karthik, what's the financial investment in this?
I think better for you to connect with the team. We'll somehow reach out to you, right? From our team will connect with you, right? And they will take you through the entire program, the outline, the investment that is required, the time that you need to spend. Who asked the question?
Shuchi.
Yeah, Suji. Yeah.
All right. And just one last, will these be recorded sessions or live sessions? The ones
Live sessions. This will be live.
All right. Thank you.
And whoever is going to register for the first program, you would be one of the first set of diversity auditors in the country. That's for you to add in your CV.
Absolutely.
So it makes a very niche segment out of the HR professionals as a certified auditor. And with Avtar's brand, I think this certification would add value to the resume. And the fact that you would be doing a management self-assessment and submitting it to whoever would like to come and review. Tomorrow, the ESG auditors are going to look at your organization's implementation. Here is your DEI self-assessment to support that. So it becomes a kind of an authentic record which you will be creating for the organization, which would add value to your goals.
There's a question. Is this a
With a lifelong certification? Yes, we would probably 2-3 years down the line, if there are amendments which come in and if there are improvements, we may call you for an update. We haven't thought about it, but yes, it's a lifelong certification. And we've specifically captioned it as an Avtar certified auditor because of our experience and the inputs which we are going to give you from our 20 years journey in DEI.
Okay, I think if you don't have any more questions, so we'll call it today. So thank you so much, Bhavani ma'am. I think it was very insightful. And for a topic which is so new, the entire ISO, we all know about ISO, but ISO with respect to 30415 DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is something very new. I think this session really helped us understand what is this entire guidelines is all about, what would entail, what would cover, what would the program cover. And I think you also nicely brought out some of the benefits as an individual that is going to benefit out of going through this program, but also the benefit that an organization would have through this particular initiative, Bhavani ma'am. So thank you so much for your time. Over to you, Lalita. Any last few words that you would like to talk about or say, Bhavani ma'am?
Yeah, just to tell people that you have been talking about DEI until your throat gets dry in your organization without an authority. Today, you've got the authority of the ISO and you've got the more powerful authority of Avtar in terms of the certification which you will get. That's my closing message to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Lalita, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karthik sir and Bhavani ma'am, for such a wonderful session. You can all catch the agenda for the rest of the sessions for the program at our website. We have our curtain raiser event on the 19th of July. And for your convenience, we have also posted the link for registration in the chat window here. On behalf of Team Avtar, I thank each one of you and welcome you to be a part of ACDA program. This is Lalita signing off. Have a great evening and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.